Hey guys, I'm going to show you the independent rear end I put together for this Ford Falcon. Used a 95 T-Bird independent rear end. It had a 327 gears, limited slip, and then with the disc brakes because it's a V8 car.
So this photo is just a prototype when I had it laid out on the floor in California, just trying to come up with an idea of how to make this work. And it was in its first stages of just sorting out one side, but you can see the cage, and you can see the control arms, and how all that was going to kind of work together. I ended up having to move the upper control arm mount down a little bit so the wheel would travel perpendicular to the ground, up and down, instead of having a weird arc and a tilt in the top of the tire as it went through the motion. So that seemed to got figured out.
As you can see, center is a 8/8. It's the 4-bolt flange, and then the half shafts. So what I had to do is I built a cage that the diff sits in, along with upper and lower control arms for both sides, and then was able to fit it up inside the frame rails of the back of the Falcon. Since the Falcon's a unibody, it's just 14 gauge sheet metal bit into a rectangle on both sides, and you can see some 3/8 bolts going through the frame to kind of hold it in place. And then I had to run a brake line over to run the brakes to both sides. So just used 1 1/4 inch DOM tubing for the control arms, and then 1x2 rectangle tubing by 1/8 inch wall. And with the DOM tubing is also 1/8 inch wall stuff. And then I just used there, you can see these are bad light. You can see the just 4-link joints for a 4-link rear end. They're just 5/8 fine thread, and the bung was a 1-inch OD, which fit inside of the 1 1/4 inch DOM tubing. So that welded together real nice. Oh, there we go. And then the coil springs were just right off of the same T-Bird. I cut a coil out of each side to get the right height where I wanted it. Here we are coming around the wheel side. So just breaking the back. So this is actually off of like a Mitsubishi Eclipse. Some guy in California had some spare parts, and it's just a single thickness rotor. There's no, it's not a split rotor or whatever they call it, with a thicker rotor. It's not that. So had to do some tricketry with the brake pads to get that to work correctly, but you can get a better idea of the control arm arrangement and the way the shocks are hung. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, back up more. Yep, so you can see the back side of the cage, control arms, shock just pretty much goes through. So the purpose of the chain is to limit the diff, or the control arms, from hanging too low if I ever happen to jump the car. So the half shafts don't accidentally get spit out the back from the angle being too great. So it's kind of the idea with the chains. And also allows me to actually jack the car up and get the wheel off, because if you don't have, the shock won't extend far enough, and you'll just keep jacking, or the shock extends too far and you keep jacking it, and the wheel just keeps hanging. So I was like, well, I'll just throw a little piece of crap chain in there, and that'll kind of keep it from going too far. But yeah, this gives you an idea. So the T-Bird, a lot of the reason I had to do new control arms in the cage is because the T-Bird's 65 inches wide from hub to hub. The Falcon's only like 58, 57 and a half, something like that, depending on which book you read and which year or model you have. Actually, it might be even less than that. 54, 55, 56, something like that. So had to have the half shaft shortened, and you can see here I found a company in East LA when I was in California. They took the half shafts, cut a V into them, and a nipple so they could realign them, and then they welded it from the inside out with some high tensile strength welding rod, and then they just machined it flat when they were done, and then reassembled them. So the half shafts have been holding together really well for the last 10 years or more. This has been put together. So yeah, this is it. So 95 T-Bird, independent rear end, and a 64 Falcon station wagon.